Hello everyone, I am Hüseyin OKTAR. I am a public procurement specialist with over 10 years experience. Today, I will talk to you on public procurement law. This is my presentation flow. First, I will talk about the history of Turkish public procurement system. Then, I will mention briefly the scope and the basic principles of public procurement legislation. There are 3 different procurement procedures I will give information. Then, I will talk about on the procurement stages. My final verse will be about the assessment of tenders. After the foundation of the Republic of Turkey, there are 4 historical milestones of Turkish public procurement system. Auction, contest and tender law, numbered as 661, is the first procurement code of modern Turkish Republic. Second procurement law was numbered as 2490, adopted in 1934. State tender law numbered as 2886 was adopted in 1983. This law is the combination of both income generating and purchasing provisions. It is still in force in terms of income generating provisions. Currently, public procurement in Turkey is governed by the public procurement law, which was adopted in 2002 and entered into force in 2003 to align Turkey's public procurement legislation with international instruments on public procurement, basically with the EU acquis. And it has created a modern procurement system. Public procurement laws covers procurement undertaken at the central government and sub-central levels. The definitions of procurement terms are regulated in Article 4 of Public Procurement Law. Procurement means proceeding which involve the award of a goods, services or works contract to the tenderer selected in accordance with the procedures and conditions laid down in this law, and which are completed by signing of the contract following the approval of the contracting officer. In other words, a procurement starts with signing of the certificate of approval by contracting officer and ends with signing of the contract. Terms tenderer and potential tenderer are crucial on several counts. For example, a potential tenderer cannot file a complaint on tender evaluation process like a tenderer. Here, tenderer means the supplier, service provider or works contractor submitting tender for procurement of goods, services or works. On the other hand, the term potential tenderer means natural or legal persons or joint ventures formed by those persons operating in the field of the subject matter of contract and have purchased the procurement or pre-qualification documents. In practice, potential tenderer means natural or legal persons who downloaded the procurement documents through electronic public procurement platform via electronic signature. Works contractor means natural or legal persons or joint ventures formed by those persons submitting tenders for works procurement. The term candidate is totally about restricted procedure. It means natural or legal persons or joint ventures formed by those persons applying for pre-qualification. A letter of guarantee submitted by tenderers helps to facilitate the fulfillment of procurement provisions. According to Article 4 of Public Procurement Law, letter of guarantee means letters of guarantee given by the banks and surety bonds issued within the context of indemnity insurance by insurance companies established in Turkey. The term authority means the public procurement authority. It prepares, develops and guides the implementation of all the legislation concerning the public procurement law. The term board means the public procurement board, which is the decision-making body of public procurement system. The term joint venture means partnerships or consortium established by mutual agreement of more than one natural or legal person in order to participate in procurement. Domestic tenderer is important for foreign tenderers. This term means natural persons who are the citizens of Republic of Turkey and legal persons established in accordance with the laws of Republic of Turkey. And contractor means the tenderer who is awarded and with whom the contract is signed. The purpose of Public Procurement Law, numbered as 4734, is to establish the principles and procedures to be applied in procurements held by all public entities and institutions governed by public law or under public control or using public funds. To be precise, any institutions, organizations, associations, enterprises, and corporations which more than half of their capitals, direct or indirectly, together or separately, are owned by those stated within the scope of Public Procurement Law, obey the rules of Public Procurement Law. As we mentioned before, Public Procurement Authority prepares, develops, and guides the implementation of all the legislation concerning the Public Procurement Law. The law has been supplemented by the Regulation on Implementation of Services Procurements, Regulation on Implementation of Goods Procurements, Regulation on Implementation of Works Procurements, Regulation on Implementation of Consultancy Services Procurements, Regulation on Implementation of Electronic Procurements, Regulation on Complaints, Regulation on Framework Agreements, General Communique on Public Procurement, Standard Bidding Documents, Draft Contracts, Specifications. And also, there is Regulation on Inspection and Acceptance for Procurement of Works, Services, Goods, Consultancy Services separately. The Public Procurement Law broadly reflects treaty on the functioning of the European Union principles for tenders. These principles are ensuring transparency, competition, equal treatment, reliability, confidentiality, public supervision and fulfillment of needs appropriately, promptly, and with efficient use of resources. I mean, the concept of value for money. In Turkish legislation, procurement below and above thresholds are subject to the same principles. In other words, there is no differentiation in the principles vis-a-vis threshold. There are other secondary principles regulated in Article 5. First, there must be a natural connection between goods, services, and works if we want to combine them in the same procurement process. With the intention of avoiding threshold values, in order to soften procurement rules, procurement of goods, services, or works cannot be divided into lots. In public procurement law, main procedures are open and restricted procedures. Negotiated procedure and direct procurement can be used under the special conditions which are regulated in Article 21 and 22. Also, sufficient budget should be allocated for procurement proceedings. If the related legislation requires, a positive environmental impact assessment report must be obtained before the initiation of procurement proceedings. Mentioned purchases in Article 3 of Public Procurement Law shall not be governed by the Public Procurement Law except prohibition and criminal provisions. That doesn't mean there is no rule for accepted purchases. These are regulated by specific manuals. Here, I should explain one more detail. There is no certain institution of which purchases are totally out of the scope of Public Procurement Law. Also, exemption does not cover all public procurements of certain sectors or areas, but it covers only some specific purchases of prisons, schools, state railways, air transport, and research and development activities. In other words, some purchases of certain institutions are exempted from Public Procurement Law. Also, I should express, most of the exclusions are mainly aligned with the EU acquis in terms of general principles. Taking into consideration the estimated cost, the threshold values that shall be applicable for the implementation of Article 13 and 63 of Public Procurement Law. For procurement of goods and services, threshold values depend on whether the contracting authority is under the general or the annexed budget or not. On the other hand, there is one threshold value for procurement of works. It is 81,614,303 Turkish liras for the year 2021. By the way, Public Procurement Authority updates threshold values by a communique in February every year. Prior to the procurement of goods, services, or works, by conducting all necessary price research, contracting authority shall determine an estimated cost excluding value-added tax, and it shall be indicated on a price bill of quantities with its justifications. Estimated cost is confidential. This is linked to one of the basic principles mentioned in Article 5. It is confidentiality. According to this rule, estimated cost shall not be stated in procurement or pre-qualification notices and shall not be disclosed to tenderers or to others. Where it's not possible to submit tenders for the whole part of the subject matter of the procurement, estimated cost shall be calculated separately for each part considering the entire work. There is a balance between threshold value and estimated cost. The estimated cost and the threshold values decide the implementation of tender notice rules and periods and arrangements regarding domestic tenderers. Also, rules on qualification criteria are determined by threshold value and estimated cost. For example, in procurement of services, if the estimated cost is equal to or more than threshold value, contracting authority should ask economical and financial standing criteria. There are three main procurement procedures. These are open procedure, restricted procedure, and negotiated procedure. Direct procurement does not require qualification criteria like other procurement procedures. Open procedure is one-stage procedure. All tenderers can submit their qualification documents and bids. Restricted procedure can be used where open procedure cannot be used due to the fact that nature of the procurement requires high technology or expertise, or procurement of works where estimated cost is higher than the half of threshold value. Restricted procedure is two-stage procedure. Those who are invited by the contracting authority based on pre-qualification at the first stage are allowed to bid at the second stage. Negotiated procedure can only be used in circumstances expressly laid down in the public procurement law and small value contracts. Paragraphs B and C of Article 21 are one-stage negotiated procedures. On the other hand, paragraphs A, D, and E are two-stage negotiated procedures. Direct procurement can only be used in circumstances expressly laid down in the public procurement law and low-value contracts. There is no contract notice, no formal requirements other than market review. As I said in previous slide, open procedure is one-stage procedure and all tenderers can submit their qualification documents and bids. In open procedure, publication of contract notice is mandatory. Contrary to restricted procedure, the number of tenders cannot be limited by contracting authorities. There is a single evaluation process in open procedures. To be precise, tenderers submit their qualification documents and bids. Then, contracting authority decides whether a tender is valid or not. According to Article 20, restricted procedure is a procedure in which tenderers who are invited following pre-qualification by the contracting authority can submit their tenders. Restricted procedure may be used in case of open procedure is not applicable as the nature of the subject necessitates speciality and/or high technology. Also, this procedure is applicable in procurement of works where estimated costs exceed the half of threshold value. In restricted procedure, publication of a pre-qualification notice is mandatory and any potential tenderer may submit a request to participate. Those who fail to meet the minimum requirements specified in pre-qualification documents shall not be accepted as qualified. The candidates who are not invited to submit tenders shall be informed in writing about the reasons of their rejection. In restricted procedure, the number of tenders can be limited by contracting authorities. In case the number of tenders that can be invited to submit tenders is less than 5 or the number of tenderers that submit tenders is less than 3, the procurement shall be cancelled. Negotiated procedure can only be used in circumstances expressly laid down in the paragraphs of Article 21. Publication of a notice is not mandatory in cases set forth in paragraphs B, C, and F. Where a notice is not published, at least 3 tenderers shall be invited to submit their qualification documents and price offers together. On the other hand, in procurements to be conducted in accordance with paragraphs A, D, and E, first of all, the tenderers who are accepted as qualified according to evaluation criteria in procurement documents shall submit their initial proposals, which do not include prices on aspects such as technical details and realization methods of the contract that is subject matter of the tender. The Procurement Commission shall discuss with each tenderer the best methods and solutions to meet the needs of the contracting authority. After the clarification of the conditions as a result of the technical discussions, the tenderers who can meet these conditions shall be asked to submit their tenders, including the tender price based on a reviewed and clarified technical specifications. In procurement of goods to be conducted under paragraphs B, C, and F, signing of contract and receiving performance security are not obliged. Direct procurement can only be used in circumstances expressly laid down in the Article 22. In procurement conducted pursuant to Article 22, the needs shall be procured upon a market price research by a person or persons to be assigned by contracting officer without necessity of establishing a procurement commission and of requiring the qualification provisions. According to paragraphs A, B, and C, the needs are purchased from one source. In paragraph D, procurement not exceeding 121,405 Turkish liras for needs of contracting authorities within the boundaries of metropolitan municipalities and procurements not exceeding 40,443 Turkish liras for needs of other contracting authorities and purchases with regard to accommodation, trip, and subsistence within the scope of representation and hospitality expenses. Other paragraphs of Article 22 regulate very specific circumstances. A procurement starts when a need arises. Contracting officer registers needs assessment report to electronic public procurement platform with all justifications. Contracting officer orders to officers to prepare tender documents and to calculate estimated cost excluding value-added tax. Both phrases should be conducted in harmony. I mean, estimated cost is calculated taking tender document into consideration. Let's see what kind of documents tender document includes. One of the basic documents of tender document is administrative specifications that includes instructions to tenderers, qualification criteria, provisions regarding abnormal law tenders, etc. I will tell more about technical specification in next slide, but briefly, a technical specification tells us all technical details about the subject matter of the procurement. A draft contract has standard provisions regarding the performance of the subject matter of the procurement. By the way, a draft contract is prepared by Public Procurement Authority according to Public Procurement Contracts Law, general specifications, and other standard documents. There are 2 general specifications, both for procurement of works and for procurement of services. Although tender document downloaded from electronic public procurement platform does not include these specifications, both specifications are fixed part of tender document. Also, a tender document consists of other standard documents prepared by Public Procurement Authority, such as unit price descriptions for procurement of works, standard form for letter of tender, etc. As I mentioned in previous slide, tender document includes technical specification. Technical criteria for the goods, services, and works to be procured should be specified in the technical specifications, which constitute an integral part of tender documents. The specified technical criteria should aim efficiency and functionality and should not consist of elements impeding competition and should ensure equal opportunity for all tenderers. In principle, trademarks, brand, model, origin, or product names in technical specifications are not permissible. However, if there is no national or international standards, brand or model can be specified provided that or equivalent phrase is stated. A contract notice must be published in order to procure goods, services, or works. According to contract notice provisions in Article 13, the contract notice period and relevant media for publication depends on the estimated cost of the contract. Basically, contract notice period is 40 days for above threshold contracts in open procedure. If a prior information notice is published, 40 days can be reduced to 24 days. For below threshold contracts, notice period can be 7, 14 or 21 days in open procedure, depending on the value of contract. Contract notices are published on electronic public procurement bulletin. Below the threshold contracts must also be published on local newspapers. In principle, tender documentation can be seen at the premises of contracting entity. In practice, all tender documents can be seen on the electronic public procurement platform, except some procurements conducted in negotiated procedure. It is obliged to acquire tender documentation through electronic public procurement platform by using electronic signature in order to participate in procurement. Here you can see main achievements about electronic public procurement platform. The obligation of registration to the platform is a huge step to reach a fully electronic procurement system. Let's see what it includes. First, preparation and publication of electronic contract notice and contract award notice is made through the platform. Also, it is possible to acquire tender documentation through the platform by using electronic signature or mobile signature free of charge. Submission of the documents concerning participation and qualification, and also preparation, submission, and evaluation of the tenders can be realized through the platform during electronic procurement. What's more, complaint applications is now available through the platform and it continues to be developed for appeal applications. By the way, all this information can be reached through the platform. I can easily say that the main purpose to operate an electronic public procurement platform is to conduct all procurement processes through it. Currently, all stages of a procurement can be conducted via the platform. I will tell you a very short summary of an electronic procurement. First, contracting authority prepares all tender documents and publishes procurement notice through the platform. Also, potential tenderer can access the platform and acquire the tender document via electronic signature. In electronic procurements, no physical documents are submitted by tenderers. The qualification evaluation is made on the basis of the information declared by the tenderer in the qualification information table attached to the letter of tender. Of course, tenderers register their bids on the platform, which has high cybersecurity measures. Then, contracting authority asks from the lowest and the second lowest standards for physical documents, which prove what the tenderer declared in the qualification information table. If they cannot prove their declarations, contracting authority asks from the next lowest standards. That's how an electronic procurement works briefly. According to Article 10 of Public Procurement Law, the tenderers participating in the procurement proceedings may be required to submit some information and documents for evaluation of their economic, financial, professional, and technical qualifications. For evaluation of the economic and financial capability, there are three kinds of documents. First, bank statements relating to the financial standing of the tenderer. Second, the balance sheet of the tenderer, which is obligatory to be published in accordance with the related legislation or required sections of the balance sheet if those are not available, equivalent documents. And third, tenderer's overall turnover showing its business volume or documents showing tenderer's turnover concerning subject matter of the procurement. Let's give more information regarding economic and financial standing. First, bank statements relating to the financial standing of the tenderer shows the assets without any reservation, non-cash or unspent cash credits within the bank account. For the procurements conducted according to open procedure and paragraphs B and C of Article 21, the amount of bank statements shall not be less than 10% of the proposed amount. On the other hand, for the procurements conducted according to restricted procedure and paragraphs A, D, and E of Article 21, the amount of bank statements shall not be less than the monetary amount determined by the entity between the range of 5 to 15% of the estimated cost. As you see in one-stage procurement, open procedure and paragraphs B and C of Article 21, we take the proposed amount into account in order to determine the amount of bank statements. Another types of documents show the economic and financial standing as balance sheets or equivalent documents for the year prior the year when the procurement is held. We want to see the financial stability and power of tenderers by means of three ratios. First, current assets divided by short-term liabilities must be minimum 0.70. This ratio, called as the current ratio, shows whether the tenderer has the necessary liquidity and the power to cover debts in short term for providing the cash flow in certain periods. Shareholders' equity divided by total assets must be at least 0.15. This equity ratio shows the extent of shareholders' equity within the assets. There is one more ratio. The ratio of short-term bank liabilities to the shareholders' equity must be less than 0.50. All of these three criteria must be complied with at the same time. The last economic and financial standing criterion is tenderer's overall turnover, which shows its business volume or documents for the year prior the year when the procurement is held. For the procurements conducted according to open procedure and paragraphs B and C of Article 21, the amount of tenderer's overall turnover shall not be less than 25% of the proposed amount. Also, the turnover of the tenderers in works, services, goods shall not be less than 15% of its proposal. On the other hand, for the procurements conducted according to restricted procedure and paragraphs A, D, and E of Article 21, the turnover of the tenderer shall not be less than the monetary amount determined by the entity between the range of 25 to 35% of the estimated cost. Also, the turnover of the tenderers in works, services, goods shall not be less than the monetary amount determined by the entity between the range of 15 to 25% of the estimated cost. Article 10 of Public Procurement Law also regulates the rules to evaluate the professional and technical abilities of tenderers. Tenderers should submit documents shows that the tenderer is enrolled on professional or trade registers and is legally authorized to submit a tender. Maybe the most important professional and technical criterion is work experience, which shows the experience and past performance of tenderer within the last 15 years for the procurement of works and within the last 5 years for the procurement of goods and services. Furthermore, contracting authority may ask documents relating to the production capacity, research development activities, the organizational structure, the educational and professional qualifications of the managerial staff and the technical staff, facilities, machinery, devices and other equipments, the technicians or technical bodies, certificates drawn up by quality control institutions, samples, catalogs or photographs of the goods offered. Now, let's see how a procurement works according to Article 36 and 37. Tenders shall be submitted to the contracting authority until the deadline for submission of tenders stated in the procurement documents. Tenders are opened in the place and time stated in the tender documentation. The number of tenders submitted at the hour of opening of the tenders shall be recorded in the minutes by Procurement Commission and announced to those who are present, and then the tender proceedings shall be immediately commenced. The Procurement Commission shall examine the tender envelopes in receiving order. The envelopes shall be opened in the presence of tenderers and those who are present in receiving order. The envelopes shall be opened in the presence of tenderers and those who are present in receiving order. Session for opening of tenders is open to public. Prices submitted by each tenderer is announced to all tenderers in this session. Then, the amount of estimated cost shall be announced. Tender Commission checks if there is a missing document in tenders and if the offer letters and the bid guarantees are proper. Before closing the first session, documents submitted by tenderers and their bids are recorded in official minutes, and a copy of them is provided to those who request. At this stage, no decision shall be made with regard to rejection or acceptance of any of the tenders. The detailed assessment of documents submitted by tenderers is carried out by the Tender Commission in a closed session. Tenders which do not meet the qualification criteria specified in the tender documentation are rejected. Valid tenders are evaluated based on contract award criteria. According to Article 38 of Public Procurement Law, the Procurement Commission shall evaluate the tenders and shall determine those that are abnormal low compared to the other tenders or the estimated cost determined by the contracting authority. In principle, the Procurement Commission shall request from the abnormal low tenders the details relating to components of the tender that are determined to be significant in writing and within a specified period. As a second option, contracting authority may decide to conclude a procurement procedure without requiring the explanation. And third, contracting authority may decide the rejection of abnormal low tender in case of procurement of services and works with estimated cost up to half of the threshold values. Contracting authorities must indicate in the tender document which option shall be applicable. Of course, contracting authorities should indicate in the tender document which option shall be applicable. Here we tell more about which tender called as an abnormal low tender. For procurement works, abnormal low tenders are identified by using a mathematical formula which takes into account estimated cost calculated by contracting authority and average price of tenders. For procurement of services, it depends on the subject matter of procurement. For services based on personal employment, the limiting value for abnormal low tenders is calculated with a mathematical formula. For services non-based on personal employment, the limiting value for abnormal low tenders is equal to the estimated cost excluding contractor profit. By the way, there are calculators on the official website of Public Procurement Authority in order to determine limiting values for both procurement of works and services. Because there is no explanation in general communique on public procurement regarding the detection and evaluation of abnormal low tenders in procurement of goods, no tender is identified as an abnormal low tender in practice. The Tender Commission shall evaluate the written explanations documented on some general aspects. These are first, the economies of production method, second, selected technical solutions and advantageous conditions that the owner of the tender will use while fulfilling the work, and lastly, the originality of works proposed. Of course, these are general aspects. Article 45 and Article 79 of General Communique on Public Procurement regulate the explanation methods in detail for procurement of works and services respectively. If explanation is requested for abnormal low tender by the contracting authority, but no explanation was submitted or the explanation does not meet the requirements laid down in the regulations, abnormal low tender must be rejected. The contract is awarded after all the assessments are completed. There are two methods for determining economically most advantageous tender. It's either determined solely price-based or along with price, non-price factors such as operation and maintenance cost, cost effectiveness, productivity, quality and technical merit are also taken into account. In tender procedures, where the economically most advantageous tenders shall be determined by taking into account the non-price factors in addition to the price, such factors must be expressed in monetary values or relative weights in tender documents. There are four different kinds of national preferences that are currently allowed by the Article 63 of the Public Procurement Law. First, if the value of the contract in question is below the threshold value, a procuring entity may confine the participation of procurement proceedings solely to domestic suppliers or contractors. Secondly, regardless of the value of contract, whether below or above the threshold in procurement of service and works, up to a 15% price advantage may be granted for all domestic tenderers. According to third option, in procurement of goods, up to a 15% price advantage may be granted for tenderers who offer domestic products. Furthermore, in procurement of medium and high technology industrial products, as determined by the Ministry of Industry and Technology, 15% price advantage is mandatory for tenderers who offer domestic products. The recent contract award decision must be notified to the parties within 3 days after the decision is approved by the authorized official. After tender process is completed, contracting authority sends a result notification form to the Public Procurement Authority. Contract award decisions are published online in Public Procurement Bulletin. And this is all what I want to tell about public procurement law. Thank you for your attention.